Hey everyone, let's jump right into today's explainer. We are diving into a topic that literally fuels our everyday lives. We're looking at the future of fuel, specifically focusing on accuracy and some really big shifts happening with measurement laws. We're going to break down how the completely invisible rules governing what happens at the gas pump are transforming and, what that actually means for your wallet and our green energy future. So let's start with a question that has probably crossed your mind at least once. Picture this. You're at a station, and you pay for exactly 5 liters of fuel. But how do you actually know, for a fact, that you're getting exactly 5 liters? What if the dispenser is off by just a few tiny milliliters? Well, if you multiply that tiny, seemingly insignificant error over the millions of vehicles on the road every single day, that minor discrepancy suddenly translates into massive, multi-million-dollar fraud. It's actually a huge problem. Here is how we're going to break it all down today. 1. The price of accuracy. 2. The new metrology rules. 3. The cost of verification. 4. Weighing pros and cons. And 5. The road to net zero.
All right, part 1. The price of accuracy.
Here's the big dilemma we're facing. As we transition away from standard petrol and diesel and move toward a cleaner future, we're seeing an absolute explosion of new fuel stations. But we really have to ask, who is actually out there verifying these high-tech dispensers for CNG, LNG, and hydrogen? We absolutely need to know if the underlying measurement technology is actually keeping up with our ambitious green energy goals. Because if it isn't, we're basically building a futuristic infrastructure on totally outdated verification methods. Moving on to part 2, the new metrology rules. To keep up with all these new green fuel stations popping up, the government recently went ahead and changed a 13-year-old law. The center officially amended the legal metrology rules of 2013, and the main takeaway you need to know here is that they've expanded the scope of government-approved test centers, or GATCs, to actively allow private players to step in and basically share the load. At the core of all this is metrology. It sounds super academic, right? But it's really just the science of measurement. Up until now, the government alone was primarily responsible for this. But you can kind of think of metrology as the invisible referee in our economy. It's the underlying system that ensures fairness, accuracy, and trust every single time you buy something by volume or weight. So with this new legal amendment, for the very first time, highly specialized private testing labs are legally authorized to verify and re-verify 5 major categories of fuel dispensers. This covers your traditional petrol and diesel, sure, but also CNG, LPG, LNG, and crucially, hydrogen dispensers, which, as we know, is widely considered the fuel of the future. This is a massive, massive shift in how infrastructure is certified. Which brings us to part 3, the cost of verification. Now, the government has standardized the fees to ensure total transparency across the board. Verifying a standard petrol or diesel nozzle, that'll run about 5,000 rupees. But clean fuels like CNG, LNG, and hydrogen actually cost double that, 10,000 rupees per nozzle. Why the price jump? Well, testing these advanced fuels requires incredibly sophisticated equipment and specialized expertise that standard liquid fuels just don't need. But, the benefits extend way beyond just getting the pumps checked, because these private testing centers are now authorized to handle all the heavy lifting of routine pump testing. The State Legal Metrology Departments are finally freed up to do what they actually do best. Instead of being completely bogged down with endless routine checks, government officials can spend their time on active enforcement, targeted inspections, catching the actual fraudsters, and most importantly, solving the grievances that you, the consumer, report. All right, part 4, weighing pros and cons. Whenever private companies enter a government space, it's a bit of a balancing act, right? The advantages are pretty clear. More testing centers mean much faster verification. Plus, private labs possess the high-tech precision needed for complex stuff like hydrogen, which ultimately builds greater consumer trust. However, the challenges are equally real. The government now has the strict burden of monitoring these private entities to make sure they aren't cutting corners or playing favorites with big oil companies. And there's also the very real economic reality that those higher 10,000 rupee verification fees for clean fuels, those could eventually be passed down, meaning slightly higher fuel prices for you and me. And finally, part 5, the road to net zero, 2070. This is the ultimate endgame. India has set a massive, highly ambitious goal to reach net zero emissions by the year 2070. And to even come close to achieving that, the country requires a flawless, incredibly expansive infrastructure for futuristic fuels like hydrogen and LNG. You simply can't reach a goal like 2070 using verification systems that were built back in the 1990s. So the really crucial point to understand here is that this amendment is all about building a self-reliant verification ecosystem. By decentralizing the process, allowing high-level joint secretary approvals, and empowering individual states to actually add their own categories, the government's building a highly flexible foundation. It's an ecosystem fundamentally designed to easily adapt to whatever energy technology comes next. This could even extend to electric vehicle charging meters down the road. Going right back to our initial thought, we have to ask, why involve private players at all? Honestly, the simple answer is scale. The sheer magnitude of India's green energy push is just too massive for any government to manage entirely on its own. Bringing in private expertise isn't just a nice option. It's a structural necessity if we're going to keep this green transition moving at the speed we need it to. And this is really where the proactive nature of this policy shines. By setting strict metrology standards for advanced fuels like hydrogen right now, today, we are ensuring that as the infrastructure for the fuel of the future is built, it's deeply rooted in uncompromising accuracy. The whole system is being designed to be completely honest from day one, rather than scrambling to fix errors years after the fact. I want to leave you with this final thought from our source material. The next time you go to fill up your vehicle, whether it's with traditional petrol or some futuristic clean fuel, take a quick second to look for that certificate of verification sticker right there on the pump, because that little piece of paper represents the invisible science of measurement. It's the true backbone of the economy that guarantees you are getting exactly what you pay for. So as we accelerate toward a green 2070, it definitely makes you wonder, as these new invisible systems take hold, how else will private innovation completely redefine the trust we place in our everyday transactions? Thanks so much for learning with me today. Stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.